just scribbled a few thoughts down, just a few ideas. Alright, that's kind of better. The lighting sucked over there, it was terrible. Well, hello, welcome back again to another vlog, and this time it's story time. About a year back, or maybe not a year, maybe not that long ago, a friend of mine who's a great guy was planning his engagement, and he decided to involve me in the whole process of planning his engagement and being involved in it. And he's a creative guy, so he had lots of great ideas. He invited me to be part of some of the great ideas and gave me a little bit of responsibility to be involved with the planning of this whole engagement and this amazing moment in his and his fiancée to be's life. One of the responsibilities that he gave me was to be in charge of holding the tea light candles, keep in charge of the tea light candles, bringing the tea light candles with us. He had this amazing plan where he was going out to Liverpool. He wanted to do this amazing thing on top of the cathedral where he was going to propose to her. His idea was that he was going to set up candles on the top, like loads of beautiful candles around the top of the cathedral. He was going to, and when we'd get to the top of the cathedral, he had all these ideas that he'd have candles around, a song that he wrote for her, and he was going to play the song with these beautiful candles everywhere as the sun went down, as it got dark. And at the end of the song, he was going to propose to her. I had one responsibility, and that one responsibility was to bring candles. It was to bring candles to the cathedral so that we could lay them all out. The only problem is, after the amazing day of setting up different kind of all the other clues that he had leading up towards this proposal to this point, when we got to the cathedral, that of my one responsibility to bring candles, I'd actually forgot them. Now, we made do because we were creative in some way, and there was about 4 or 5 people at the top of the cathedral, and we'd asked them if we could borrow their iPhones. We flipped the flashlight on the iPhone and laid the iPhones down around in a circle where he was, and he was playing his guitar as she came up, and there was beautiful lights, and she walked towards him and he played this amazing song and then proposed, asked her to marry him, and she said yes. And it was an amazing story. It was beautiful. He, like I said, kind of set clues up along the way. We spent the whole day in Liverpool, and she kind of worked out along the way through all these clues that something was going on. Got to the pinnacle of the day when it was him proposing, and she said yes, and it was amazing. It was beautiful, and we came away from it with a great story for people to tell, a great story for them to tell. And I mean, it's a small thing, but in the first kind of, I guess, night of him telling the story as he got his families together to celebrate, one of the things that kept coming up was how one of his groomsmen, one of his best mates, even though he'd planned and he'd prepared and he'd done everything, the one thing that didn't go to plan was me forgetting the candles. But it's interesting because it made me go away from that whole story, and yes, I was aware of the great story and the great proposal and how phenomenal that was, but it made me go away, I suppose, aware of my lack, aware of my mistake, aware of my forgetfulness, and aware of me forgetting a small detail in that whole story. One of the things I realised that, I mean, my friend's not a perfectionist, but he's good at stuff, and it made me realise that the demand of perfection always leaves you aware of your lack. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, no one's perfect. Perfection will always leave us aware of our lack. Lack always causes us to feel shame, and shame always pushes us to withdraw. In this episode, I want to talk about the tyranny of perfection. Really, the tyranny of perfection is the unquenchable demand of everything needing to be exactly right before you do anything, of everything needing to be perfect. There are no perfect moments, there are no perfect circumstances, no perfect situations, and no better time to start than right now. Imagine instead of waiting for perfection, you just did what was possible. And I think there's a drastic difference between what's perfect and what's possible. And so many of us, and myself included, chase the perfect and disregard the possible. And it's interesting what happens when you disregard perfection and you actually grab a hold of possible. Because what I did today was I did what was possible. Just grabbed the tools that I had and went about my day doing the best I could with what I had. And I think that's the resolve in it. That's the best way to handle the tyranny of perfection, is to just do what you can with what you have right where you are. In 1988, George Harrison was working on a solo project, and he was releasing a solo single. And in those days, to give something extra to the people that bought the single, people would put on the other side of the record, they'd put a B-side, and it would be another song that was an extra for the people that were buying the main song. So it wasn't necessarily like the best song, but it was an extra for people that were buying the main song. George Harrison realised that he had a lot of friends living in LA near him at the time that were great musicians, people like Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, and a couple of other people. So he realised that while he had these friends there, he might as well record the song with them. So he really quickly grabbed his friends together and said, hey, do you want to help me record this song? It's going to be the B-side for my new single. So they did it, took it to the record labels, and the record labels loved it. It ended up being an amazing song, so much so that they realised that there was some potential in them as a band jamming together, writing songs together. So they decided to do something together more permanently. So all of them got together and said, let's record a full album. Let's do something that's a little bit more a longer project. Let's do something that has a little bit more weight to it, and let's record an album. The only issue was that Bob Dylan was going on tour in 2 weeks' time or something, and they only had 2 weeks essentially to do an album. If they were ever going to do an album, there wouldn't be much time for them to do it. All of them got together and said, hey, let's have some fun, let's record an album, let's do the best we can with 2 weeks. They wrote an album, recorded an album. They named the band the Traveling Wilburys, and Rolling Stone ended up calling this band top 100 bands and 100 albums of all time. It's amazing what happened in that 2 week space, where they just did the best they could with the 2 weeks that they had. Something amazing and creative came out of it, and I honestly believe that if we just did something with what we have right now at this moment in time, something amazingly creative would come out of it. Perfection can so often be the paralysis to possible, and I never want to be so distracted by what's perfect that I miss what's possible. Do something today, create something, start somewhere, begin. Don't get caught up in the tyranny of perfection.